It's in the Bible, Luke 10:18. Satan came down as lightning.
That's enough.
Satan will come down as lightning.
Would you mind introducing yourself for the mic?
My name's Lochlan Watt, and I do a whole bunch of different music-related stuff, and I'm here in Kuala Lumpur.
Of the music-related stuff that you do, would you mind naming two bands and maybe a label that we might know you from?
Yeah, I've recently been doing a band called COLOSSVS, and I sang in a band called Nuclear Summer, and I run a label called Monolith.
So readers of the blog will probably be familiar with Nuclear Summer because I've written about them, I think, at least 3 times. You guys played a show at Rumah Api 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. It was in, I think it was in November 2012.
So almost exactly 2 years ago, and that was one of the first Nodafest shows that Sichan and Wanhajil organized, and I've written about a few of the bands on Monolith, like Ache and Idols. So it's good to have you in town and good to have you for this chat. Also sitting with us quietly in the corner is Duan from Dagila. Duan, do you want to say hello?
Hi, hello.
All right, and we'll try to get Duan to chip in a little bit. So Lochlan, why are you in KL this time around?
A few weeks ago, I just decided that I really wanted to go on a holiday and found some cheap flights to Malaysia. And yeah, ever since coming here last time, like we were only here for 3 or 4 days, and I really enjoyed my time and wanted to, just to come back for a holiday and be able to explore the country a little bit more. And then I just booked some flights and I hit up Duanum, and he told me the show was happening at Rumah Api, and it was like a really nice coincidence. And so
your trip coincided with Chaos in Rumah Api, which just finished yesterday.
Yeah.
So you didn't know that Chaos in Rumah Api was coming when you?
No, I had no idea. So it was pretty cool for that to happen. So I have some punk and metal to ease me into the trip, and then tonight I sort of head up north and I'll travel around Thailand a bit and then come back down and leave from Penang in like a little over a week.
Let's talk about the first time you came to Malaysia, which was when you were touring with Nuclear Summer. How did that show come about?
I can't remember exactly who booked that one for us. We had a few different people helping us out. I think it might have been through some of the contacts that Idols had made through their Southeast Asia tour, which they had done earlier in 2012. And yeah, it was funny, Last Chaos played that as well, and we sort of tagged along with them. They were a band from Brisbane, and like been friends with those guys for a long time, but Nuclear Summer and Last Chaos had never played a show together until we got to Singapore and then Kuala Lumpur. So out of that tour, the only shows that I was really responsible for was organising the Japan leg, and I think Chris from Idols helped out with organising the rest, and Jackson, our other guitarist, kind of got behind a lot of it as well, and I just sort of came along for the ride.
What was your experience like touring Southeast Asia?
To this date, I still rate it as the best thing I've ever done. It changed me. I think it changed everyone for the better.
How so?
To really give you a reality check on a lot of levels, and to go from just playing shows in Australia to going straight into 2 weeks, like 8 shows or whatever, in Indonesia, where gear was falling apart, police were being paid to leave us alone, there's kids holding up symbols and stuff, and just the sheer chaos and just how much everyone appreciated live music was really quite touching, just to come to, I guess, countries that don't have as much money and to see people just actually having a better time with what they've got. I thought that was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Just the way we were treated at all the shows was remarkable. Such good hospitality all across the board in every country we went to. But it was funny, like with each country we went to, it was like the technology and the facilities got a little bit more modern, but then like the rowdiness of the shows scaled back as well, so it was like this sliding scale. So by the time we got to Japan, we're in venues being mixed by iPads and these crazy digital mixing desks and blah blah blah, and you get a little crowd standing there like being all polite. And yeah, then at the start of the tour in like Indonesia, and you're just getting mobbed and swarmed, and everyone's getting picked up and carried around, and it was just insane.
I do have to point out that Last Chaos show that you guys played at Rumah Api, the singer from Last Chaos got picked up quite against his will, and not held up quite as well as he should have been, and there are photos of him with just his legs sticking up as he hit the floor, which is unfortunate. You guys played well. Your point is well taken, because one of the things that I appreciate most and continue to appreciate most seeing shows at Rumah Api and in Malaysia in general is we never really get the tours. You know, we're probably never going to see Morbid Angel in Malaysia. You know, a lot of the bigger metal and hardcore bands are more likely to skip Malaysia every time they have a new album, and you know, even if they get to do some kind of Asian tour, we're not high on the priority list. And so every time a band does come through, we're very appreciative of it. And usually it doesn't really matter where they come from, like if they're Swedish or if they're Australian, or you know, we just had a Thai band play a couple days ago, and kids were freaking out for them. And you guys also played Rumah Api during that period where you never really knew what one of the amps was going to do. Like I remember when Idols played, the guitars just died like in the middle of the set, and the guitar just kind of looked at us like, all right, well, I guess that's it for me tonight.
Yeah.
But you guys, I thought, did a really great set. I'd never heard of you before that night.
I was a bit worried about how we were going to go down, because we were a fruity post-hardcore band with like a few progressive metal bits and pieces and playing a cross-punk sort of show. Like we'd never really done those kind of gigs in Australia, so I just really wasn't sure how it was going to go down, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think people still seem to really get into it, and we still have people from Malaysia contacting us on our Facebook and stuff.
Yeah, and I do give the organizers of Notafest and Rumah Api bookers in general credit, because they tend to not be too conservative when it comes to putting bands together for a lineup. Sometimes you'll get these odd mixtures, but you know, like I said, kids are always appreciative of a band that comes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
What I really liked about Nuclear Summer is, especially during the last like 4 or 5 years, there's been this trend towards almost stubborn unoriginality. Like a band will name themselves after a different band's song, and all their songs will sound exactly like that band. And you could take all these bands and all lump them together, and they all sound exactly the same. And Nuclear Summer was one of the rare bands where I was listening to you guys and I was like, I don't know how to describe this. Like I heard like some Cave-In and I heard some Rosetta, but for the most part I was like, I don't know what to call this, and I don't know like really what to say about this.
I had the same experience when we started that band. Well, I didn't start the band. There was a few of the guys already jamming. I'd never thought in a million years that I'd be in a post-hardcore band, really. I've always been in metal bands. I'm like a metalcore and a death metal guy mainly. I do have like a bunch of post-hardcore that I really dig, but it's not like my main thing. So it was really odd for me to come into a band like that, but they were all my really good friends and it just clicked, and I was like, what type of music are we playing? Like, and then we released our demo and one of our friends said, described it as sunshine metal, and so sort of semi-tongue-in-cheek we decided to run with that term, and so we called ourselves sunshine metal.
I think I actually really dig the term sunshine metal for two reasons. One, because it's kind of obnoxious, especially when so much metal is like black metal, and,
death metal.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, being that you guys are from Australia, it's like, you know, how much winter are you guys getting down there? Not much, right?
Yeah, it depends what part you're in, but we were from Brisbane. Most of the band were from like Rockhampton originally, which is like a country town, like 7 or 8 hours north of Brisbane or something, and yeah, I guess it fit. We're all a bunch. Even I sort of grew up in the sort of acreage areas outside of the city. Our drummer was from Toowoomba, another country town. So yeah, I guess it did fit in that way. And it's kind of like, I think our music was a little bit cheeky and the term is a bit cheeky, and just, yeah, it worked for us. I haven't heard of any other sunshine metal bands popping up though.
That's I mean, that's probably the best reason to do it, right?
Sunset to every discredit, to idiots of lack of faith in themselves. Yet I live for another space, and this true reality would never have arisen. What will you see in your reflection the day before you die?
what the writing process is like for Nuclear Summer.
The first few songs we wrote were just as Jackson, the guitarist, old bass player Alan, and Nathan playing drums. They had like 3 or 4 songs worked out when I started jamming with them. I think maybe 2 of those ended up on the album eventually. But the other guitarist that we ended up getting in, Brendan, he's like the crazy shredder. He sort of I wouldn't say he took over, but he sort of just naturally, he spits out so much stuff that his playing sort of took dominance. But generally, I guess, like for the songs that Jackson would write, Brendan would kind of come in and just do his bits and pieces over it. And then I guess he'd sort of come to jams with mostly full songs, and it was never like a fully smooth process, but we were all involved in the structuring of the songs. Even I'd sort of give suggestions on how things could go, or arrangements and whatnot, and you'd get some people that were really stubborn about that and others that weren't, and creatively there was always a bit of tension, I think, but I think it sort of worked for us in a way, and we'd always get there in the end, and we'd always find the agreeable middle ground usually if there was a disagreement about how a part should be. And then even towards the end of the band, after, because I didn't always play keys, I sort of brought the keys in for the album. Yeah, like towards the end, the last few songs we wrote, I had a bit more input, because I'd come up with a few like little riffs or whatever, or just be able to express my ideas a bit better by actually being able to play them out. And so yeah, I think by the end of it, we were writing our best stuff yet, and because everyone was really all on almost the same page, and it became a lot easier.
I think since we saw you in Rumah Api at the end of 2012, you guys released 1 EP and have been pretty quiet since then, right?
Well, yeah, we actually, we never said that we'd broken up, but we basically broke up.
Took a hiatus, maybe?
Yeah, that's why we called the last EP Death to False Sunshine Metal, as like a little eulogy thing, just in case, you know. But some things are happening now, so we'll see.
Can we say that you guys are writing new material?
Actually, just this morning I wrote the first lyrics for Nuclear Summer that I've written since the final EP. Yeah, because I always felt like Nuclear Summer wasn't dead, and I always sort of had, I moved on and I started doing other stuff, but I always had the hope in the back of my mind that one day we'd all be able to come back together again. But almost everyone lives in a different city. Like Jackson lives in Canada, I live in Melbourne.
That's quite a commute from Canada to Melbourne.
Yeah, so we're not putting any pressure on it. We're not going to go, well, we need to do these shows, we need to tour, because we were sort of getting a bit like that in 2012, and we were just touring all the time. But yeah, he's sent me one demo, he's got another couple in the works. Jackson and him have been emailing riffs back and forth, and I think like doing stuff on Skype, and I don't know how we're going to work it, but everyone's on board. We'll see. I think we're just going to maybe try and write another, like an EP or maybe an album, and we'll probably all try and get together, and it's really still very early days, but we all seem pretty excited to do something with it, so I don't think Nuclear Summer's dead yet.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, no, I really like those 2 Nuclear Summer recordings that I had, and I think what you guys were doing was something special at a time when a lot of bands really weren't special. Since you guys played Rumah Api, we've had Australian bands coming through fairly regularly. What advice would you offer to any band, Australian or otherwise, who are touring Southeast Asia?
Travel light. Don't really have too many expectations. Just be prepared to go with the flow. Trust the locals. Get some cheaper sort of merch happening, like badges, patches, stickers. That sort of stuff goes wild. CDs and tapes, I think, might sell a little bit more easily than like 12 inches and stuff. Drink plenty of water. Don't be afraid to try the local foods. I don't know if this is ill advice, but interestingly enough, on that tour, everyone else in Nuclear Summer had all their immunizations and all their shots, and they were all taking malaria medication and stuff. I did none of that, and I was the only person that didn't get sick. So make from that what you will. But yeah.
Well, you might just have a stronger constitution. You might just have so many antibodies in you that.
Well, yeah. Actually, this morning I had a bit of a lapse in concentration and was just drinking cups of water straight from the tap at Dewan's house, and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing, man? Like, that's really dirty." And I was like, "Oh, fuck, I'm gonna get really sick, aren't I?" But nothing's happened. So.
Yeah, I think with the water in Malaysia, it's more of the when we say it's dirty, it's the mineral content, not necessarily like bacteria or anything like that. It's not like Mexico where you get diarrhea from microbes in the water. It's just
so what sort of minerals am I dealing with here?
I mean, it's like the water comes in from a reservoir, and it's like whatever it picks up along the way as it makes its way through the pipes.
Okay.
So you're better off. Most homes will have a filtration system.
Yep.
Just to clean out a lot of the impurities. You're not going to die, but yeah, it's probably not the best idea to drink the water here. when you're talking about merch, we had Kylesa play here earlier in the year, and not for nothing, but they brought a bunch of extra large shirts to Malaysia, which they weren't able to sell.
Right. Yeah, actually, that's another thing. Get lots of smalls and mediums. And be prepared to trade. It probably wasn't as big a deal here, but in Indonesia especially, like kids would just come up and be like, trade, and like, you would have no say in it. They're all of a sudden their shirts off, they're handing you their sweaty, disgusting shirt that you don't want anything to do with, and all of a sudden they either expect like the shirt off your back or one of your band's shirts.
Right.
And so
maybe go to a thrift store and pick up a bunch of old shirts. And
if you're touring Indonesia, don't take your favorite t-shirts. So I had a couple of awkward situations where I was just like, sorry man, but like I love this shirt, you can't have it. Yeah. And like these dudes were just like get a bit shitty because they'd already taken off their shirt and thrust it at you.
Yeah, the trade situation is a little bit odd. You can understand it from the perspective that the economies here in Southeast Asia are, so much lower than probably what you get in Australia or Europe. So that if you're spending $10 or $20 for a shirt in the States or in Europe, there's no way kids here are going to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
But they can definitely give you a shirt that they have and expect something in return. And some bands are cool with it, some bands aren't. Again, like I don't really know like what the mentality is from kids here who like hand you a shirt that they've just been washing in for 20 minutes, expecting something in return. But just expect it, I guess.
Yeah.
Set free the wolves, your own ambition. It waits until fall apart in a moment of lust. Yet when we try to tighten another dream, it's never as pretty as it seems. We wish for hindsight to be but the first time.
let's talk about Colossus. How did you get involved with those guys?
It's funny, it sort of ties in with the Asia tour thing as well in a roundabout way, but actually I was recording a demo to try out for a band that didn't end up happening, and after I'd recorded this demo, the producer, engineer dude, whatever, he's the guy that actually mixed Nuclear Summer's album. He mastered the final EP as well, but he's like, check this out, this band I've been working on, it's fucking sick. And I'd seen them play a couple of times over the years and thought it was a pretty cool band, and he showed me the album and it was like next level. This kind of Ringworm Integrity sounding band was all of a sudden still like that, but like massive fucking... What the hell is that in the bush?
That looks like my coffee lid fell in and something might be trying to...
Yeah.
Take it.
Well...
I should warn you that there are like rats everywhere in Malaysia. So
yeah, that's probably what it is. But anyway, where was I? Yeah, he showed me this, the first few tracks of the album, and I was like, this is huge, like I need to be involved in this somehow. And so I hit the dudes up, and we started talking, and it was funny because I'd never really met most of them before. I'd met them like really briefly, never really hung out with them, but we'd all sort of been in the same circles and had a lot of the same friends and blah 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 for a very long time. And like even some of us used to post on the same forums and stuff. But anyway, we started talking and I offered to put the album out on Monolith. We sort of went back and forth, the few bits and pieces, and it was going to happen, then it wasn't going to happen, and then they went on their Asia tour, which was really similar to the one Nuclear Summer did. They did Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, just maybe a few less shows. At the end of it, when they were still in Japan, the singer quit. He was like, I'm sick of touring, I'm sick of being in a band with you cunts. And they came...
That'll do it.
Yeah, and they came back to Australia, and they were like, firstly, they were like, hey man, sorry about the confusion with the record stuff. We've talked about it a lot, we really want you to put it out. Let's move on this stuff. And I was like, awesome, done, because I was really loving the album, I was listening to it so much. And so I was stoked on that again, and we were going to get the vinyl press, and then literally the day after that I get a phone call from one of the other guitarists and was like, yo, Chewy just quit the band, do you want to join Colossus? And I was like, do I get to re-record vocals for the album? And he's like, of course. And I was like, fuck yeah. But it was funny because the album had already been mastered and had been mixed on an analog desk, so the whole mix had to go back from scratch. I had to spend another, $1,000 or whatever it was to get it all mastered again, and it took me like maybe a month in total. I broke my voice a couple times doing it, but got it all over the line in the end, and so it was a very different experience for me. Like for Nuclear Summer, that was like, just really emotional, just all laid bare kind of stuff, and Colossus, I came into this band that had a whole concept album already written, and so I was singing lyrics I hadn't written even. I was sort of making some of the vocal patterns and stuff a little bit more my own, but for the most part it was already written. So it was pretty different, but it's really fun. Like I still really respect and enjoy the lyrics, and I have a lot of fun with it. I think we just, the whole like metal sort of thing that we have going on with the candles and the satanic imagery, and it's I think it's a more theatrical kind of band to be in, and I'm just having fun.
Okay. I actually missed Colossus when they played here. When you say theatrical with candles, like, are we talking like a Watain level where they've got like a stage set and...
Not quite. They basically just have a big banner with the skull logo. Actually, no, I think they lost that. They lost that in Indonesia somewhere. But generally we just all wear black clothes and set up a stack of candles and some incense. And if there's lighting in the venue or whatever, we just have it really dim and sort of set to a red color. I think moving forward, we've talked about kind of stepping it up a bit. I don't know if I really want to go to the whole hog and have, the sheep's heads on stage and stuff like that, but I could maybe see us doing fake blood or something at some stage.
Yeah. Well, what are the lyrics like? Because I know that whole Integrity, Holy Terror kind of style has a very nihilistic, pseudo-satanic sort of thing going on. Are you guys doing that as well?
Pretty similar, I'd say. It's definitely, like, the album's called Unholy, and it's definitely got like an anti-religious kind of satanic slant, but it's all religious stories. all using lots of religious kind of imagery and iconography. Our guitarist Mike, who wrote a lot of the lyrics, he has a bit of an interest in the Bible. He's a very sort of anti-Christian, anti-religious kind of dude. I'm a lot more spiritual, I guess, than I used to be, but definitely, I guess I don't really appreciate what a lot of organized religions stand for and what they've done to the world. And a lot of the songs are I think the Unholy trilogy is sort of about Satan's warriors coming to Earth and overthrowing God and all that kind of stuff, really.
The Unholy trilogy is the last 3 songs on the album, right?
Yeah. So that's sort of like they're 3 songs that flow into each other, and there's a few like bits and pieces of stories all across the album, but that's the main sort of conceptual part of it all. But yeah, I think you probably get the gist.
Yeah. I'm curious about this Holy Terror style. How would you describe it? Like, what makes a band Holy Terror?
I don't think we really completely subscribe to saying, oh, we're a Holy Terror band or something. I think, especially since I've been involved, the band is they came from a more really hardcore kind of background with a lot of the more tough guy sort of bands and stuff, and they sort of just were playing those shows all the time, and we're getting progressively more metal with the sound, and they just kind of wanted to get out of that and start playing more metal shows, which is what we've been doing. But yeah, there's definitely a huge influence of that. I think Integrity is one of the... Integrity and Ringworm would be some of the really strong earlier influences. But then our drummer Ash, you say that to him and he's like, what? I don't listen to any of those bands, fuck that. And he's like, I just started this band because I wanted to do a band like Converge. And then Joy, one of the guitarists, a lot of his riffs I think have a huge Mastodon influence, but that's sort of put into the context of the maybe Holy Terror-ish kind of style. I know Behemoth and Dimmu Borgir, Satyricon, you can hear a lot of that influence in the music as well.
I mean, for me, when I first heard Integrity and Ringworm a few years later, it was like, oh, hardcore kids are finally learning how to play Slayer riffs. So it'd be like...
Well, that shit all started in the 90s, so...
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when Integrity were on Victory, it was like, it would be tough guy hardcore, and all of a sudden they'd throw in the Slayer
huge
riff.
Solo.
Yeah. Cool. Did you have to change your vocal approach a lot from Nuclear Summer to...
It's definitely a bit of a different style, but I still feel like it's coming from the same place in my gut. I think maybe I shaped my throat a little bit differently in some of the parts, but before Nuclear Summer, as I was saying earlier, I did a melodic death metal band, I did a sludge post-metal kind of band, I did a tech metalcore, deathcore kind of band. So Nuclear Summer was the one that was out of the ordinary for me, where I really started to push my voice to do heaps of different stuff. And I tried to do a bit more of the melody for the Colossus album, but it just didn't fit. There's one song that has singing, the gruff kind of old man sort of sounding singing. And there's a few bits where I do the yell, which is identical to the Nuclear Summer yell. But yeah, mainly the music doesn't call for singing, so it's just pretty non-stop heavy. So that's the vocal approach that I took, and I think moving forward with the band, we want to incorporate a lot of different stuff and try and get some of the melodic style in there. It's cool because I really loved the challenge with Nuclear Summer of being able to do different styles and do the singing, and after a while it really started to become natural. But I also did miss getting to do the brutal metal stuff as well. I think you can hear little bits on the album, there'll just be 1 or 2 lines where it's really brutally low death metal vocals in the middle of this post-hardcore song, but we always had to mix that a little bit kind of lower so it wasn't too overpowering, and it made it work in little bits and pieces, but yeah, you can never get away with a lot of it. So hopefully, moving forward, Colossus will be the band that keeps touring and doing stuff, and Nuclear Summer will write, and we'll hopefully be able to play some shows off that eventually, and then in an ideal world I get to, I guess, continue to express both sides of my voice.
How hard is the vocals on your throat? Would you be able to do one set of Nuclear Summer and one set of Colossus in the same show?
Maybe. If I'd been on tour for a week, probably. Especially if I was in Asia where it's so humid, you don't need to worry about warming up or anything. But then actually I'd probably be completely dead and exhausted after a set. But the Colossus stuff really actually, like when I was doing the album, I had one song left to track and my throat was just like, it was pooped. And I kept coming back to the studio and trying to redo stuff and I wasn't getting anywhere. My voice just couldn't get back to the level it was, and after a couple of weeks I was like, fuck, I've fucked my throat forever, like this is bad, what am I going to do? Ended up seeing an osteopath who gave me this strange tantric-y fucking head massage and rubbed some magnesium cream into my throat, and I felt something kind of click back into place, and I think the muscle must have just been tightened up. Yeah, the Colossus is really demanding vocally, especially because it was written, well, it's all been written by some, like the guitarist who is not a vocalist and doesn't have to sing it, so he doesn't know that, like, dude, you know, there's barely a chance to breathe, and like I just got to keep going. But the more shows we play, the easier it's getting, and I guess to answer your question, I think I could probably pull it off, but I wouldn't really want to.
I'm just trying to weasel both bands to come back to Rumah Api sometime next year. That's the only reason why I asked.
Colossus will be coming. It isn't officially booked in, but I think we're going to be playing Rumah Api in March, and we're playing a really huge metal festival in Jakarta. That's on that same trip. It hasn't been announced yet, but hopefully it'll be announced soon, and we're going to try and do a week of shows around that. Hopefully we can do Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and then go to Indonesia. Yeah, I don't know if Nuclear Summer would ever come back. I'd love for it to, but at this stage, if we can just write songs, like, I'm happy with that.
Nuclear Summer and Colossus were released on your label Monolith, right?
That's correct, yeah.
How long have you been running the label?
I started it in 2008 as a touring thing. I booked a tour for a band from the US called Rosetta. I needed a name for that, so that's how Monolith was born, and I just sort of did shows and tours here and there under that banner for a while. And then I think around 2011, might have been late 2010, one of my older bands, Ironhide, we got completely ripped off by someone that said they were doing a startup label, basically. They were starting a new label. They wanted to put out us and a friend's band. He took all the pre-order money, spent it on records and drugs and fucked off and really fucked our band. So then it was like, alright, I've been thinking about turning Monolith into a label for a long time. This is the starting point. And so that was that. And yeah, I've had a couple of different sort of business partners over the years that have come and gone, that have helped the label sort of grow a fair bit. And then I guess towards the end of 2013, we did a couple of tours that really just broke the bank, didn't make back the money we needed them to make back, and just made a few ill-informed decisions financially. And then my last business partner decided to bail out after that, and the label sort of went a bit quiet. And so yeah, there's been 2 releases in 2014, a split 7-inch with a couple of Australian bands on it, and the Colossus album. And so yeah, I'm still sort of involved with tours where I can here and there. We're helping present and organise and promote the Birds in Row tour in January in Australia. And we've got another huge tour that's being announced in January for March. It'll be like the first like full-on death metal tour that Monolith's been involved with. I've been sort of loosely managing bands for a while now as well, and moving forward into next year, I'm going to streamline the label a bit and also kind of have the management side of things made a little bit more official. So it'll kind of be management and publicity for a few of my friends' bands that I'd like to work with, but also the touring thing, and in talks with a few bands about doing some records. Basically though, I really need to make sure I'm not losing money, because I'm still paying off debt from when it all sort of went kaput. I've made a fair bit of headway, but putting out records, you have one that doesn't sell well, and that's $3,000. That's going to probably not ever completely come back. And yeah, I loved doing Monolith, but it definitely burnt me out for a while, and I haven't really done a huge amount with it in 2014, but it looks like 2015 there's a bit of steam building up again, so hopefully we can sort of move forward.
How do you choose the bands who play Monolith? Are they usually friends bands?
It all started out with just friends, yeah, and then I guess eventually the label kind of started to get a bit of a sound, and there'd be a few bands here and there. Like, I guess at the end of the day, they're all friends or associates in one way or another, but the core group of bands that we started with was all like my best friends. And then it sort of started to reach out to interstate bands that I kind of knew one or two of the dudes from, or whatever. Like Ache was a complete, that was a bit of a fluke. No, that was meant to just be a demo. Their guitarist was the only guy from that band. Well, the guitarist and the singer, really. Bass player, singer. I knew those dudes, sort of. One of them sent me a demo. Well, one of the tracks from that, and I was like, dude, this is sick. What are your plans? And he's like, oh, it's just a demo. We're just going to put it up or make some tapes or something. And I was like, oh, can I release it? So I did.
That Ache release was really good. I think it was a 4-song release.
5 songs, I think?
5 songs, yeah. I think I've covered a few of the Bandcamp releases that you have, and I'm curious about the economics of the pay-as-you-want downloads.
Yep.
It definitely gets, I guess, more attention, because people are like, oh, I can download this for free.
In hindsight, man, I wish I hadn't done that.
Really?
Because with each subsequent release, people would donate less and less, and eventually, you put something up for free and you'd hardly get anything for it. And I guess in some ways that's cool, because there's no real not much in the way of overheads. But then if you've got no money coming into the label, you can't really promote that effectively, because a lot of promotion costs money. Like touring costs money, even getting the records pressed and stuff, a lot of the download costs would help offset that and everything. Well, the download income, I mean. And then when I sort of started to realize that, and I noticed the numbers were all sort of, even though sales were sort of going up for records and stuff, and it's getting more traffic, less and less people would sort of donate money. I saw that trend just as a gradual slide. And so then I did start putting like an actual fixed price on releases, but then it's sort of, people already have the expectation and they're like, well, why?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's a weird situation. Like, I download a lot of music off Bandcamp that I'll pay for, but I also download a lot of music off blogs that I don't pay for. I don't have a problem with people downloading the music for free. Like, I totally get it. I just wish that more people could kind of, like, it sort of takes doing it almost to realize how much money is involved and how much money you can lose so easily just by making music. You know, especially in a country as well off as Australia, and people will spend hundreds of dollars a week on alcohol and coffee and stuff, but then when it comes to spending $5 on a download, they'd rather take the extra couple minutes and go get it off a blog, and it can be a little bit disheartening sometimes, especially when you release something and within a day it's up on a blog and you're like, come on man, like we put that album for like $4, like it's not that much money, and you have no idea how much that actually really helps keep a label and keep a band going. It's a tough one.
Yeah. Do you find that having the releases for free on Bandcamp de-incentivizes people from actually buying the physical releases?
Definitely, but I also think like we started putting releases on Spotify and stuff, and that does that as well, and it's just kind of, it's just the way things are going, I guess. But you know, another cool thing about having the free downloads is I wouldn't expect kids in, you know, Indonesia or Malaysia or whatnot to really have heaps of spare change lying around to buy records, so it's cool that like it can help it get spread a little bit further, it can get a bit more global. But yeah, I think it's especially like I've just become quite involved in the music industry as the years have gone on, and I just see the constant downsizing of labels and everything, and it's, I guess, you know, times change, but labels can't operate without some kind of income. Even if you're on like a super DIY label, like there's got to be money coming in to do stuff. You see like record labels shutting down, and you know, like Hydra Head and Roadrunner, like some really like labels like that sort of just, Roadrunner didn't shut down, you know, but it got sold off, and it's kind of not what it was. And maybe we're just moving towards a more independent musical culture without record labels and such as being such a prominent, important thing. But then you see like big bands that they go and do their 3 or 4 albums with a big label, and then they go, all right, we're going to be independent now, and then they'll be really successful. Like Rosetta, when they released their last album independently, they made a ton of money. Like A Day to Remember, they like absolutely killed it when they went independent. But those bands, and that's like a really big sort of pop punk metalcore band and a really sort of underground post-metal band, but even still, both of those bands would not be anywhere near the size that they were without the labels to back them and promote them originally. So yeah, I see all the sides of it, and it's sometimes it's frustrating because it's hard to try and get that point across to kids without coming across as being like some fuckhead going, fuck you, pay me, because I've never made any real money off Monolith. Like a few tiny bits and pieces here and there. I think I spent like $25,000 on the last Rosetta Australian tour, and I made back like $2,000, and that was a good 6 months of work. But generally speaking, it sort of operates at a breaking even sort of point or a total loss. So every little bit someone can donate, I guess, through the Bandcamp definitely helps. I've still got heaps of debt from pressings and tours and stuff, so that's every bit that comes through the Monolith Bandcamp is going towards helping get rid of all that. And then once I've been able to clear that debt, you know, and sort of move forward and be more of an active label again, I guess.
that you sing for, you also have a radio show, right?
Yeah, I do a show called The Racket, which I've been doing for 3 years now. It's on a network called Triple J, which is like the Australian government's youth radio network on the ABC and Australian Broadcasting Corporation or company. I can't remember which one, but yeah, that's been a wild ride, a sort of dream come true. It is just unbelievable to be able to have a steady, not only just a steady income, but a steady income funded by taxpayers to spread heavy music to like 40,000-50,000 listeners once a week. It's
that's pretty amazing, actually.
Dude, like every time in the countdown timer, 10 seconds before I go on air, I just sit there and think, how the fuck, what? Like, is someone going to find out that I'm doing this? And like,
does it feel like you're getting away with something?
I don't know. Like, it just still feels completely surreal, and lucky is just not enough to describe it, I think. But you know, like, I did so much for Australian music for so many years without hardly making any money, really, or just going broke to tour or bringing out bands and booking tours and doing records and never making any money. And then for that to come along and be able to support me has been a pretty nice reward, I guess.
Are you allowed to play whatever you want?
Basically, as long as it fits with the constraints of the show, which I guess is just heavy music and I try and keep it around a third Australian content.
Okay.
Sometimes I do all Australian specials. I've gotten in trouble a few times for not giving the appropriate language warnings for certain songs and stuff, but essentially I can play whatever I want. I don't play, it's not like Lochlan's favourite bands for 3 hours. I try and just make it a really good spread of all different types of heavy music, like all different types of metal and hardcore, a little bit of hardcore and in there as well, and stoner stuff and a bit of hard rock sometimes as well. I just try and mix up all the genres as best I can and just reward the bands that are touring heaps or making good music by giving them exposure and just letting people know when international bands are touring and all that kind of stuff.
Have you seen any of that exposure rub off on the own shows that you organize, or?
Well, it's a conflict of interest in a way for me to, because if it was commercial radio, I think it would be a totally different story. But because it's government, I've got to be really careful about how much I self-promote. So I'm not allowed to play Colossus. If it's a band I manage or a tour I've booked or a release I'm doing, I've got to email my bosses first and say, hey, this is what's happening. I'm hoping it's all good if I play it next week. This is why I think it's justified. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, cool, thanks for letting us know, all good. And basically that's so if someone from the public goes, hey, he's just played something that he's financially involved with outside of this, that's fucked. Well then, as long as I've asked permission, they can say, no, that's okay, we approved it, we think it's a valid editorial decision. And so it's definitely helped me heaps with like connections in the industry and getting to know people, and I've booked a whole bunch of crazy regional shows and done a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have done if this hadn't come up. Like I've taken some bands to Alice Springs, which is like a desert town in the middle of Australia. I never would have even dreamed of going there, but like it's because I went there to report on this first ever metal festival in Alice Springs to do a report for my show, and now they fly me back there. Like the festival organisers fly me back there every year to MC it. Hopefully Colossus is going to go to play there next year, and yeah, so it's definitely had an effect, but it's not like I'm on there really pushing my own wares super hard or anything. So
I guess we're wrapping up around now. What do you have planned for the next 6 months?
Colossus is doing a lot of touring. We got the Birds in Row tour in January. We got February off, and then in March we are doing the Asia run, and then we're going back to do a couple of shows with some big death metal bands. We got
name some names.
We're doing a couple of shows on the Psychroptic album tour with there's a few other awesome bands on that tour, but it hasn't been announced yet either. Oh, it's definitely happening, but I don't know, when are you going to publish this?
Probably in the next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, well, it'll be announced by like January 13. So, but we're doing some shows with Goat Whore and Psychroptic. Disentomb are on those shows as well. And then in May we're opening for Suffocation and Decapitated.
Fuck yeah.
Which should be pretty sick. And then we're doing a big tour in like May, April. It goes for like 4 weeks with a couple of really big Australian bands that I can't announce that one yet. But that should be sick. There's a few different Other things that have been talked about, maybe some shows in New Zealand, maybe another big Australian tour with some international bands in July. Hopefully we try and get to Europe by the end of the year, and hopefully in the next few months as well I'll be releasing this movie that Monolith has been working on. We toured a band from Japan called Palm all around Australia last year. That was one of the tours that actually we lost a fair bit of money on because it was just so ridiculous, but we did like 20 shows, every single state and territory, took them to some really crazy places, and we had a really awesome camera guy come along and film it all. And it's turning into this really, I thought it was just going to be, you know, a typical handy cam in a van, dudes partying, but it's just turning into this really art house, abstract cultural juxtaposition, and it's proving to be take a lot longer than we thought, but the translation's coming along really well with subtitles and stuff, and it's definitely I think it's like at 60-70% now. So we'll be releasing that. We'll be releasing a trailer for that sometime in the next week or two, and then early next year we'll release that movie as well. And hopefully once that's out, I'll bring Palm back out for some more shows, and I guess keep doing the radio. I've got a couple of Monolith releases being talked about. Some of the bands I manage are going to be releasing some albums and doing some big stuff, so it's all music all the time. 2015 is going to be pretty big, I reckon.
Righteous. Anything you want to add? Anything you want to say to people in Malaysia?
Well, just thanks for the chat, man, and thanks to everyone at Rumah Api for doing what they do, and all the locals for being really cool and giving me drinks and smokes and all of that. I appreciate that. It's been a fun time, and I can't wait to come back.
I am more familiar with sinners than saints, my dear, and sinners always look good.